the first part, she's going to spend 5 minutes or so just talking about how she got into blockchain, really simple stuff. The second part, she's going to describe some of the tips and tricks, some things that you should know and take stock of before you get into this space. And then finally, she's going to talk about some trends, some really cool projects that she's been involved with as well. And really looking forward to hearing that. And I think you guys will too. So without further ado, go ahead and take it away, Susan.
Hey, Kenna, how are you?
Great.
It's nice to see you. How's Miami? You guys are just finishing up Art Basel, which is always such a shit show. I mean, it's beautiful art, but it's so hard to even just move around.
Exactly. You know? The traffic, but you get to see everybody from all different walks of life. So that's always nice.
Yeah, that's always cool. And I always feel inspired. I'm always exhausted, but very inspired. So just to much of my work in blockchain and in technology is a culmination of my life's work. I began as a journalist when I was 16. I was an on-air simultaneous translator for the Olympics back in like 1988. And from that moment on, I decided that I wanted to be a journalist. And I became a journalist largely because I wanted to understand my parents and I wanted to understand the world at large and be able to kind of piece together my part in it. And so that was a wonderful 25-year journey. And then I went into advertising and marketing for 7 years. And then when I started writing about technology, starting with an AI company that was based in Silicon Valley in 2014 to help with their narrative and their community development, I did a deep dive and found that I actually have a love of complex systems as long as they're intelligently designed and have fidelity, as in that they deliver on the promise of what they were created for. So fast forward to 2016, I'm at Web Summit Technology Conference, and I see this woman with amazing shoes and a hat, not just a regular jeans and hoodie, and we're admiring each other. And I was like, fantastic hat. She's like, fantastic outfit. Yeah. I'm bonding in that girl way. And then I was like, oh, what are you doing? She's like, I got a Bitcoin starter kit. I'm like, oh, interesting. And towards the end of the conversation, she said, oh, we should really work together. I'm like, oh, no, thank you. I don't want anything to do with that baby buying Bitcoin stuff. Like, working on this. This is good. But she's like, no, you don't understand. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than all of us. You really have to be a part of this. And so she kept sending me links to things to read and telling me, hey, buy this. And it took about a month or two where it's just like reading everything and watching YouTube videos at 2x speed. And at that time, I was working on NLU and LP and figuring out how to build a training corpus to train my machine learning algorithms. And one day I just stood up in bed and said, oh my God, I can crowdsource the data that I need. I could crowdsource parts of the data that I need for my system. And I just kind of like went from there. And what happened afterwards for the next 5 years is probably the most intense, beautiful journey of learning about everything from financial systems to technology to computing capacity, server capacity, cybersecurity. But what it really did for me was to look at the importance of relationships and conversation about money that we have. And it always really always surprised me that why aren't these things being taught in school? Why aren't we talking about it in our families about what is a counting unit? What does value and money mean? And how does credit and all the different fulcrums of a monetary system work? Right? Because it has such an impact on our everyday lives. And I think we're actively discouraged to think about these things, at least some of us, most of us, I think. As women, a lot of times we're encouraged not to think about or talk about money, that it's too complex or it makes us bad people, or that it's, something that we, really don't need to focus on. And I can't think of anything more important than financial and security, health and hygiene in terms of the practice and our relationship with it.
Totally. There's a little bit of All right. So question, when you took that time to go through all those YouTube videos, how did you steer clear of, some of like the videos that kind of embellish certain coins or, just kind of like the trash that's out there? How did you kind of stay focused on information that was really going to give you a fundamental understanding of things?
Okay, well, my bias is that I was brought into the space of really smart, well-meaning people who had already been in the space for a very long time. And so it was just basically talking to as many really smart people who seem to have their shit together and ask them, give me a reading and watching list. And who do you like? And so I started watching Anthony Antonopoulos, who's still, I think, on the speaking market. At that same conference where, I was gifted my first half Bitcoin, I met Tony Vays, who doesn't give very good investing advice, but he seems to definitely knows his shit when it comes to Bitcoin. And so it sounds so basic, but don't listen to Twitter for your financial advice. Are you out of your mind?
Agreed.
Don't take unsolicited financial advice from someone you don't know off of fucking Twitter. I know it just sounds so basic, but you'd be really surprised, or off Facebook, right? And if it's, I had so many imposters, I actually had to say this. I had so many imposters, so that if somebody messaged me, I'm like, oh, how do we know each other and where do we meet? Because 80% of the time we haven't met. We only know each other from online. So I'm like, every time that you get an imposter, because I would never slide into your DMs and say, hey, I've got this great trader, you should invest, right? Oh. And so I know a lot of us had these imposters. And so it'd just be like, ask them first off how we met. And I bet you anything, the conversation doesn't go anywhere. So it's so common sense, safety, right? It goes a really long ways. Just because someone has a lot of Twitter followers or YouTube followers doesn't necessarily mean they're great. You can buy those, you know that, right? Off of farms in India, which is just basically looks like a switchboard with thousands of cell phones plugged into them.
That's true.
It's true. Why don't people talk about this stuff? How do you know? I think that the best way to learn about something is to define the question for you personally. The fastest way to learn about anything is to look at yourself and go, what problem am I trying to solve? Am I trying to build my net worth? Do I want to know strictly about investment and trading? What works best for my life, for my level of risk, and the capital that I can afford to lose? Because no one ever invests in anything in more than you can lose, right? Or you shouldn't be. And whether that means 10% net of your monthly income, or you factor in all your monthly costs, right? And once you cover that, you see what's left over. That's called a break-even point analysis. And that's what you're playing with, only what you can lose. And then, consider yourself, what can I get super excited about learning about that I'm willing to read about for like 10, 12 hours if I have the time a day? Because you should never invest in anything that you don't know and that you haven't vetted. And DYOR, do your own research, do your own due diligence. No one's going to look after your money like you.
I love that. Not enough people say, focus on something that you're going to love and know you're going to be able to read for 10 to 12 hours straight, right? Like that's really what you want to do though. And, unfortunately, people end up reading about what they think is going to make them money, and that's where they get lost. And it's very discouraging, right?
Look, yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of different ways to make money, as you know, especially like on the interweb. Remember that meme website, I has a bucket with a Photoshop walrus and a bucket? This was in the late 90s. Thankfully, you must have missed that because you were probably only born in the 90s. But I has a bucket, it was called. It was basically a Photoshopped walrus carrying a bucket. And he was all cross-eyed with big buck teeth. And he'd go, I has a bucket. And he's in like different scenarios. That website sold for $10 million. So never, ever, ever be surprised I had like all the different ways that you could make money on the internet. But for us common people who actually have to work jobs and have bills to pay, you have to know what you're getting into if you're putting money to it, you are buying into that dream. You're partaking and participating in that ecosystem. So don't ever invest in something that you don't know. If you don't know anything equally, you have to ask yourself, well, it seems to be a really high growth rate. What is the most relatable vertical that I can apply to my life that I think is going to be useful and is going to be good, right?
Yeah.
And feeling that if you absolutely do not have that, then find a friend who really has money, that understands money. Don't listen to your friends who are broke. Go to your friends who seem to be really smart and doing well and actually have money, and go ask them really good questions and ask them what their reading list is and who they're following.
Great advice. Man. So another question that comes up, for folks who are watching, white papers, they're super long. Some of them are like 40 pages long. There's a lot of jargon in them. And I love how you how you created contrast and described, how to basically pressure test a white paper. So if you could share. Great.
Basically, I look at how big and long and bloated it is, and then I copy and paste a section of it, and I do a worldwide Google search, and I see how many other white papers pop up.
Wow. Yeah.
And if there's a whole bunch that pop up with the exact wording, I know exactly where they got it, or if it's a template. Remember, the Bitcoin white paper is only 8 pages. It should tell you exactly what problem that they're solving and how their technology is proposing is a solution. And then they should present some models about the inputs and outputs of where that value is going and how it picks up steam.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Now, this is the part of our conversation I'm really excited to share, which is some of your experiences. Specifically some of the projects you've been in that you're most excited about, where you see the space going, especially like all these different hype cycles that are going on every 4 years. It just seems like everybody gets interested. There's a new buzzword. How are you sort of thinking about that and framing that against what really matters in this space? And then, I think that the opportunity to leverage the technology to serve noble human causes is also very important. And I know you had talked about some sort of forms of technology that are helping people who are incarcerated to find opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love for you to just drop it right here.
Okay. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. And they're like different projects. So anybody that builds anything that is of any use to anybody, it has to be solving a problem. It has to be interoperable, which means that it can link up and work with other technologies in the digital space, right? And a lot of that is infrastructure that is being built out. The bull run of 2016 and 2017, a lot of those were single tokens that didn't have interoperability, never mind scalability, right? So it was only for a small group of people, and you really couldn't do anything with it once you bought it. That was a running joke. If you ever get to YouTube, look up Lemon Coin. Lemon Coin and on YouTube. It's a fantastic satirical video of just about, how ridiculous it was to have a token that you really couldn't use anywhere, couldn't transact with or do anything with.
I'll put the link.
Yeah. If you drop in a little link, Lemon Coin. And that was too much of that. Along with DeFi protocols in this last, and this bull run, that interoperability is possible. Meaning that there's a lot of cross chains and side chains and things that you can swap and trade with, and to put into stable coins for yielding and farming for everyday people to be able to realize yields of any far better than anything a bank will give you. Because right now with the monetary system, right, bank, you put your money in the bank, they charge you to use it. Then they take that $1 and then they lend it out 20 times and charge other people to use that money, and then keep all of it for themselves. At least with yielding and farming, you're going to take your crypto, get into stable coins or specific coins, and you're going to add it to a liquidity pool and let people who like to speculate and trade with it, give them that, lend them your coins to be able to speculate with it. And if they're over leveraged or their positions get liquidated, then your coins come right back to you. if the exchange that you're on or the system that you're on is very stable. And for that, you have to do research. But there's a lot of really good ones. I mean, look at Celsius, look at Aave, Curve Finance. All
Yeah.
those are fantastic systems, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to get you, like 8 to 12% APR, which is more than anything any bank will get you.
Yeah.
You know, even with term deposits.
Way
So, you know, when you're looking at digital assets, having the ability for individuals or communities to be able to finance, not finance, but to be able to lend to each other and transact and trade with each other, then it's the direction of that community and the purview of that person to be able to determine what has value for them, right? And that is a tremendous power that you have to really, that's a tremendous power that's almost a fundamental right in a digital economy, right? How can you think about being in a democracy or really making your decisions and being able to vote accordingly if you are worried, if you can't find safety in your own physical body, that you'll go bankrupt because you don't have healthcare, and you can't make money to feed yourself or your family because you're locked out of the digital economy without the wherewithal. So that puts the onus squarely on the individual. You must learn about the money and the technology and adapt if you want to be a part of it. But this is the thing, is that those who are willing to adapt and learn and work hard, there are so many opportunities for the next 10, 20 years to be a part of this digital economy moving forward. Because right now we're at 2 to 3% adoption. Mainstream adoption we term as 10%. So the way that, so some of the projects that I've been asked to advise, there's a friend who started a bank, and he looks at getting prepaid credit cards and was looking at a tokenized system to give credit to the formerly incarcerated. Most of these men are in for non-violent crimes or served their time and paid their debt to society. But you know, once you have a criminal record, it's impossible to rehabilitate. For a lot of these people, it's impossible for them to rehabilitate themselves and build their credit, especially without a wherewithal or baseline knowledge on financial literacy. So incorporated into the system of helping people to rebuild their credit, they also run them through a 6-month education program on how credit ratings work, how to build your credit, what to look at in terms of, you know, the numbers and the ratio for what you budget, and how to create a budget even for yourself according to your needs and keep to it. And I think that's something that a lot of people should be talking about more. I don't think your average person understands how money works, how monetary systems work, how credit works. And all of that is very important if you're to remain your sovereignty of your personhood in society.
Yeah, I agree 100%. There's definitely a kind of revolution underway by leveraging this technology, right? But then I think there's also got to be a new kind of cultural relationship to money that really empowers people to understand the technology and how it can really serve them. And that's the same thing that happened with the internet, right? Like when it was dial-up and we were using AOL to send emails, we were like, yeah, all you can do is send emails with this thing, you know? And now it's turned into so much more. As the next generation is really fully onboarded into these kind of the technology itself. So I agree 100% with you on that. Can you share a little bit about the Hangry Animals project? I think that.
Oh yeah, I'm super excited. So I'm an advisor on Hangry Animals. It's an NFT. It's an NFT that gives investors access to intellectual property, particularly specifically a 3D animated movie, a Hollywood franchise, as well as an original soundtrack and exclusive events around the world. There's a lot of rappers who've been very supportive of this because there isn't really a movie out there for the urban culture. And I can't think of anything better than Hangry Animals to reflect kind of like the feeling of these times, you know? So I messaged Coinberg, Coinburn and Andrew Minton, artist Andrew Minton, are the founders of Hangry Animals. And I said, hey, you have a project called Hangry Animals. Why don't you help me feed some real animals? And can you donate some? Can you donate a single? Can you donate an NFT that'll go towards the Mason family in Bali? 25 years ago, they rescued 30 Sumatra elephants. There's only 800 of them remaining in the world, and they were able to rescue 30 of them 25 years ago, and paid for their keep and their activities and upkeep out of pocket for 25 years as part of their adventure park. But with 2 years of lockdowns, the park has been without any income because no tourists are able to come. And so I wanted for them to, I guess, tie in their brand with something in the real world. If you have NFTs that are online, then why not help feed animals and bring some of the attention offline into real elephants? So we determined, Bali elephants for the auction, as well as an organization called Saving Ganesh. They've been operating solely by donation and by volunteers for 15 years in Sri Lanka to alleviate some of the friction between farmers and local communities that live on the same lands as the wild herds, and to be able to sponsor safaris and other activities where people can engage with elephants, but also generate revenue for the communities that live around those lands.
And it's beautiful, not enough of these kind of stories are making it to the mainstream, right? I mean, you see the headline. You have a history in journalism, so
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
I mean, these.
Oh, well, because we talk a lot about like monetary systems and finance. So I'm also advising a group called Stable Unit. Okay. Super smart guys, and it's a algorithmically balanced stable coin. And I'll explain to you in a moment why stable coins are important in DeFi. But it's in the beginning, it's a DAO from day one, and it's collateralized. The dollar is pegged to the US dollar.
Yeah.
But it's at first it's collateralized and over collateralized by the value of Bitcoin, ETH, and other cryptocurrencies. And so it allows people to go in and borrow stable unit against their underlying assets that they already hold. And once their money is on chain, then it gives you the flexibility and the ability to be able to execute your trades in a fluid, smooth manner. And it's not pegged solely to the US dollar. It's collateralized by the value of ETH and Bitcoin.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That should like reduce some of the volatility then.
Stable coins allow you to be able to participate in the digital economy and to be able to take advantage of the yielding and farming and the high APRs without the volatility and the harrowing, some of the technical aspects that are, frankly, sometimes not very easy to adapt to for a lot of people. No. And so stable coins are a perfect vehicle for that. The best thing about stable unit is that you don't have to go in and, pick and choose your pairs and do the yielding and farming yourself. They do that on the back end collectively, so it yields in your wallet. And that's what the benefit of it is. So it makes it useful for anybody to be able to hold some of the value in their hand. Now, stablecoins are really important because it's for people who can't stomach the volatility. They're not necessarily day traders themselves, but they want to be able to have money on chain as a hedge against inflation, which is at an all-time high right now. And also to be able to enter into the digital economy.
Yeah, no. That makes a lot of sense. And honestly, it's usually kind of the innovations that are designed to simplify the participation that get adopted first, right? So as you were describing back in the day in 2016. single coins, were out, but there wasn't a lot of interoperability. So essentially you're locked into a specific coin and their value based on the supply demand dynamics of that specific coin, right? And the challenge has become over time, okay, well, how do we make that, how are we able to exchange that value? Well, let's create systems that allow us to basically trade these tokens, right, across an exchange, right? And these exchanges are really designed for traders. They're not designed for, you mentioned that the adoption right now is like about 2%, 10% is mainstream. It's not really designed for mainstream, right? Participation. So what you're describing is an approach that's really designed for mainstream participation. I think that's very forward-looking, because you could sell them on, hey, look, volatility is a problem. We solve that, but you can also participate in protecting the value of your dollar, via digital currency. So yeah, this sounds like an amazing team that you're working with. So
Oh yeah, they're so smart. Like I said, I like being the dumbest guy in the room. And so frequently when I get to advise teams of like super nerds that have, worked for amazing companies, these guys are all like former Google, Uber, former 1inch. And the founders and the creators, they know what it's like to have monetary controls just leave their families destitute, despite not having done any kind of risk, hardworking, working class families. One of them is from Russia, where value of their currency was just completely dropped to the cellar without any warning, not once but twice within these young guys' lifetimes, and they're only in their 30s. I'm Canadian. I grew up in cyclical recession where monetary policies failed and plunged us into huge amounts of inflation without any growth. And that's called stagflation, which is a period that we might actually be at risk in entering into. It's when prices skyrocket, but no one's making any money because we're paying for the debt of past, and things weren't balanced quite right. And so, I want everybody who is willing to learn, adapt, and do the work to be able to have access to this being the digital economy, because clearly the global economy has failed many of us, especially you younger generations that have known nothing but the Great Recession since 2008. And, there has to be a sense of hope. And so let that hope be in learning useful things. And why don't you start with the basics of how do we count value?
Yeah.
And what is money? Money is a counting unit. It's a counting unit of time, products, and services. And if inflation goes up, then essentially you're being robbed of your life and of your time. I remember this was 10 years ago, even looking at, and I was really happy because I was signed on to a great job, and I was looking at it and I'm going, holy shit, I have to work for the first 4 to 5 months to pay my taxes. Like with this new job, I'm working essentially for the first 4 to 5 months and paying my taxes. That's called slavery, folks. Sorry, not to say that to you. I mean, not that I would know any more than, definitely people of color would know that far, far better. I myself am not a Black person, so.
We understand.
I'm not pretending to know what that is, but I'm just saying, if I'm working 4 to 5 months for the first year, paying my taxes, I'm sorry, but that's slavery.
Yeah. Okay. So, we're kind of, coming to the close of the final segment. And I'm just kind of curious, what would you say are the biggest takeaways for the audience? Like, if you could give them one thing that they should walk away with, what would it be? And then finally, how can people support you, essentially? You seem like you've got, you're doing some cool stuff and you're flying all over the world. But how can people find you? And maybe if you have some content that they can engage with or something, I think that, your perspective on the world is one that should be shared. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. You can always find me on Twitter at Susan. You could also find me on LinkedIn as well under Susan. And I don't always post things that I'm working on. I usually try and sort of keep it quiet until it's mostly done. But please look up Hangry Animals. look up stableunit.org. I'm also working with a great group. It's a group of white hat hackers, some 800 of them way back in the day, had a white hat hacker group that then turned into a community that would offer scans, that would do scans as a service of auditing code vulnerability. And so we're going to be tokenizing the system so that it's accessible to anybody to be able to get really cheap scans and audits of code vulnerability and tokenomics. And have it yoked into a system. So don't invest in anything that you don't know. And being smart is a verb. It's not a state of being. It's a state of doing. And no one's going to look after your money but you. So always do your due diligence and don't invest in anything that you don't understand. There's no such thing as a stupid question because it's your money. So.
Thanks so much. This is good.
Okay. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. I hope it's not the last time. And I know you're very busy, so and we're coming to a close here. So this is farewell until next time. And if I don't talk to you before, safe flight to Thailand. And
thank you.
Yeah, best of wishes.
Oh, thank you so much. And I hope you edit out all the flubs. I mean, I just so that would really be great. That would be really helpful.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.